2, 1. All right. I'm here with Ryan Doyle from the Verdigris Table.
Hey,
How
hey,
are you today,
hey.
Ryan?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here, man. I was really happy we got to do this.
Great. Yeah, me too. My name's Pittsburgh Pat. So for my audience, you guys know me. I talk about positivity. I talk about creativity on this channel, really into D&D right now. And just for a little bit of background, Ryan, tell the people what you do on YouTube.
So yeah, I have a small but mighty YouTube channel where I hope folks get into Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of the focus has been on like beginning dungeon masters because it is an awesome hobby, but it can be pretty intimidated to get started. And a lot of onus falls on the dungeon master, and there's a lot of people who can't find a dungeon master, so they have to be the dungeon master. So I tried to make that as easy and welcoming as possible for folks. And lately we've been getting into like a little more like advanced DMing topics, branching out into like different games and stuff, but I try to keep the gates as wide open as possible, you know.
What I like about your channel and I've been watching your channel a lot lately because it dovetails well with what I'm doing now, which is teaching 9 to 11-year-olds how to play
Mm,
D&D
mm.
and getting paid for it.
Ooh,
But yeah,
we
I
can
know,
talk about
right?
that after. How do I get some of
Yeah.
that?
Well, I think yeah, it's amazing actually. I fell into it. But yeah, so I've been using your videos as kind of like, you have these wonderful prep guides. So you're
Mm,
like, okay, here's how you Spire Peak. Here's how you prep for the windmill adventure, and here's how you
mhm.
prep for like Nomengard, and and it's been extremely helpful to give me ideas. But what I really like about your channel is you focus on the role play, right? So you focus on like, okay, how do you get into character? What do you do with these NPCs? How do you make them
Mm,
distinctive? There's 10 of them. How do you make them different?
mm,
And you're really good at that. And I'm a big performance guy. So like that's
mm.
where I come from, So like, yeah, so that's what I find fascinating about your channel. Because there's a lot of people out here doing Dungeon and Dragons videos. So we have to
Mhm.
kind of make ourselves distinctive, and that's what I think
Yeah,
makes you distinctive. One of the
yeah.
things.
I set out to make because it's a crowded field, right? And there's a lot of like high level conceptual stuff out there, and then like whatever, like the newsy stuff. I don't have the I don't have the bandwidth to chase whatever Hasbro's doing today. But the I started by making the videos that I wish I had found when I
Yes.
started myself, because I started in a vacuum. Like I was too old or too young. Like I missed the 80s wave. I didn't have like the cool older brother or the cousin or anybody. So like I, as an adult, came to D&D and like asked around and everybody was interested, but no one had played before. So I'm an autodidact, right? I taught myself. So yeah, those like the Lost Mine of Fandelver and the Dragon of Icespire Peak videos in particular are focused in on like the nuts and bolts. I'm not afraid to over explain, I think, because like I'm trying to come at from the beginner mindset, but bring in those like more advanced concepts. Like here's how to do this, here's what we can learn from it and apply it to the next adventure that maybe we're making up ourselves or whatever, buying a book off the shelf. And it's funny, I am very much both sides of the coin, like the strategic war gamer. Like we like combat, we
Hmm.
do
Hmm.
we do very like complex, and I run a fairly like deadly game. I like the challenge aspect of that. I honestly, and I think if you're doing it right, that dovetails with role play. Because if you're sweating, right, if your character's sweating, your character's in a life and death struggle, and if it feels like no big deal and you're just sitting there waiting for your turn to come around and you're on your phone, like that's not an immersive experience
That's right.
as
And I
putting the
think
pressure
that's
on.
that's kind of the point, right? We're going to have emotions, we're going to have fun,
Mm,
but we're
mm-hmm,
also going to have suspense, hopefully, and maybe
mm-hmm.
so a little bit of, just that tiny little tinge of fear that makes excitement happen. We're like, no, I like this character, don't kill it.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
that kind of thing. So now with the kids, I'm taking a little bit of a different tack
Of course,
because I
yeah.
don't want to kill off their characters, but we have to present them with danger. But one of the things that I told the parents and how I kind of sold this lesson plan was that through D&D, I can teach them all kinds of things.
Oh, it's
There
incredible. Yeah, I have a
there's a
buddy.
there's a money system. You can teach them finance.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, how do you make math fun? I've seen a lot of attempts. I haven't seen many successful attempts, but like, yeah, I mean, it feels complex math when you're sweating because your character's going to die, but like, yeah, here's a bunch of shapes that we're gonna learn about platonic solids.
Yes, exactly. We're going to learn
And
about the perfect shapes, the perfect
we're gonna do
solids.
math on the fly, real hard.
So you
Like
can
your life
talk
depends
about,
on it.
yeah, you can talk about ancient Greek philosophy if you want. It's and actually there is I think there's a book out now, or it's a third party book that
Mhm.
talks about the ancient Greek like monsters and gods and things, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing because you can pull in anything. You can run a very math centric session and teach kids skills. You could like easily fold in like here's you need to know your multiplication tables to open this door, right? Or
Oh yeah.
to
Puzzles.
diffuse this trap. Like, but at the same time, like you can spend a session, not touching the dice at all, and it's all role play. And you want to talk about the soft skills, the social skills, consequences to your actions, how to treat people, right? You could like
Yes,
you
and how to
know
work
that this
together.
NPC isn't real, and then the cooperative aspect of it
Hmm.
between the working as a team to not die and the storytelling side of things as well.
Because with the boys, with the young boys, it seems like the first thing I want to do is kill each other's characters off. So like, there's this,
Mm.
they're taught games from a competitive zero
Yes.
sum game point of view. You're playing
Mm.
Monopoly, you're playing Risk, whatever you're playing,
Mm.
checkers, and it's somebody wins, somebody loses. So this
Mm.
is a totally different concept for a lot of these kids, and
Mm.
it dovetail. It actually will serve them well later in life, because most situations in the workplace or otherwise are not necessarily zero sum. They're mostly like all the boats rise on a rising tide. So if we all do well, everybody wins, right?
That's fascinating to me because I really respond to that aspect. Like, there's not a lot of games out here that are collaborative, right? There are, I mean, a lot of people are coming, especially I'm sure the little, younger boys are coming from like the lens of video games.
Yes.
And like, even if you are on a team, you're against another team. And
Yes.
there's win conditions and you can lose. And D&D is so much more open-ended. And the more you cooperate with the people at the table and the, imaginary non-player characters, potentially the more assets and allies you have, the better off you are. And that is way closer to real life experience than this like cutthroat
Yeah, like
zero
chess,
sum.
where it's like,
Hmm.
aha, I got your king, although who
Hmm.
knows, hostile takeovers in business might be like
I
that.
mean,
But
it
it's
exists.
yeah, it's there, but it's not like your day to day. It shouldn't be. I
Right,
hope your day
right.
to day workplace. And if it is, get out. So I just recently, anyway, we'll talk about that another time. So I
Yeah,
just wanted to shift gears for a little bit.
sure.
I'm always interested in like YouTubers and like how they got to tubing. So like tell
Hmm.
me a little bit about like how you got on this platform, when you got on the platform, if you wish, and just like tell me like how did you get to 1,000 subscribers? Everybody's wants that people I talk to about YouTube, because I do
Hmm.
videos about that too. They all want to know how to get to that magic 1,000 subscribers. So how did that happen for you?
So I've been going for about 2 years. Conceptually, I've been thinking about it for more than 2 years. But the first video went up, I want to say November 2 years ago.
Cool.
So one time on task and reps, right? I've left up my first videos mostly so that people can go see, um, that hopefully I've improved, right? But as much as part of me wants to go like turn all that old crappier stuff private, I think it's good to see people's progression because so often we compare, and I do it myself. 2 years into it, I'm comparing myself to people who've been doing it for 10 years,
Mhm.
and you're comparing your beginning to somebody else's middle, and comparison is the thief of joy. And yeah, that doesn't help you. So
I
focusing
like
in
that.
on what you're
Comparison is the
doing.
thief of joy.
Yeah, I stole that from somebody.
I'm stealing it now.
It's yours. Take it with my blessing. So yeah, I mean, I really focused in on you hear a lot if you look at like how to succeed at YouTube, like niching down is talked about a lot, but I really think that's focusing on your audience, right? Like knew I wanted to talk about D&D, but like who am I, who's on the other side of this camera that I'm speaking to? Is it, you know, the person that's been playing for 30 years and wants the nuts and bolts of like the day to day, or is it someone who's just coming into it? And you can focus in even more and more. And I've expanded. I feel like I'm trying to grow with my audience a little bit. Like I'm getting into a little more conceptual, sophisticated. Like now you got the nuts and bolts down. You can start to, you know, think about these things as well. But I think that's the most important thing for people starting out. One, realizing that like, I mean, it can happen overnight, but it probably won't.
Right.
And two, remember who you're talking to. And the thing that helped me continue to do this for 2 years was that sense of community, was like hearing back from the people I'm talking to. You know,
Cool. So you have like an active comment section where you have regulars that like
yeah,
talk about your videos, give you
yeah.
like good critique and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you get the good and the bad. It is the internet, but I have a pretty good, you know, I haven't done a lot of moderation, right? I haven't had to get rid of much. But you know, whatever. I'm a middle-aged white dude. I'm kind of bulletproof from a lot of that stuff. But the comments, and then I started a Discord, and I've made a few connections with folks on
Okay.
there, and it's just really cool. Even the like the one and done's like, hey, I am, you know, always want to do this, never got a chance. You've helped me do it. Tomorrow night, me and my kids are sitting down and we're going to play for the first time. And like, that's deeply gratifying, right?
Isn't that
And
yeah, it's so gratifying when you touch somebody that way, you know, and
yeah,
they let
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and that's what I'd say. If anybody's out there listening, like let people know if they do something that helps you, like
Mm,
because a lot of times what happens is, and this is anywhere, but like say in um customer service,
mhm,
like when I get good customer service, I'm the guy that like says, hey, can I talk to your immediate supervisor after this call is done,
mm,
so that I
mm,
can like say that, because so many times it's only the negative, right? The
yeah,
only negative comments inspire, or only negative motivations inspire people to like make comments, but it's the
yes.
positive ones, we need those as well, because we need to know what we're doing well. We do need to know where we could do better, there's no doubt.
Constructive
Constructive
criticism.
criticism, you don't have to be
Mhm,
rude about it, but like, you
mhm,
can say, look, your camera was shaking during the video, or
right.
you talk with your hands too much, or the microphone was in the shot, like this
I've been waiting for
microphone's
somebody to
in
tell me
my shot,
I'm real handsy. I've been waiting for somebody to say something. What's up with this guy? But
Well, it's better than being static. I mean, you see people that look like deer in the headlights with their cameras, so
well, it's
like,
in
there's
those
that
early shots, I'm
too.
like holding
Yeah.
my hands because I
Yeah.
didn't want, because like I'm from New York originally, so like I got that, it's in me and it wants to come out. So either I hold it back, or you can be yourself, right? That's the other thing.
That's the main thing. It's easier to be yourself, because if you're
Yeah,
yourself, then you don't have to assume a persona. And I think that
right.
comes through. So like a lot of times on the video comments I'll get is people will say, thank you for cutting straight to the point and telling me how to do this. Because it's the
Mm,
how-to videos that like get I get the most, well, I make
mm.
the most money on, and I get the most like comments on, because I solved somebody's problem, right? So
Yeah, and if you like, so one of my like secrets to success, or success being a relative term, but on YouTube, if you're starting, Google owns YouTube. And
yes.
if you're trying to be successful at YouTube, you're trying to get like started on YouTube, search and this is the way people are going to find you. No one's, I mean, people do it now, but no one was typing in Verdigris Table. No one was typing in Ryan Doyle. People were typing in how to run Dungeons and Dragons. And
Right.
that's the pipeline. So, and again, and that is exactly that. Know who are you talking to? Who is your audience, right? What are they looking for? Is how the algorithm's going to serve up your content to people at first, um, and then give them the answer so that they come back, right? There's a lot of negativity and clickbaity and bait and switchy stuff out there, and honestly some of those people do really well, right? But I mean, it's really nice to be monetized. It's not a ton of money to be,
Yeah.
you know,
Let's be,
selling
yeah, let's be
to be
honest with
selling your
everybody
soul for.
right now, that
Yeah.
like, in order to make this your full-time job, it's really like a lottery. Like,
Mhm.
this is I do this, and it's on my, like, but I have to do other things in order to like pay the bills. Let's put it
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
yeah.
I'd love to be able to just do this, but
Mhm.
then also, I think I would be beholden to. So here's the other thing. Like a lot of people make their money off of Patreon, right? I
Mm,
don't have a Patreon. I don't know anything about Patreon. I'd love to interview people about that and find out what
mm.
that's all about.
Yeah,
But
I have a Patreon. We can talk about that for sure.
so yeah. So when you're on a Patreon, do you feel like, okay, I'm going to make this video for the Patreon people, and I'm going to make this video for the public, and then like, how do you get people to like? First of all, how do you attract Patreon? How do you attract patrons?
You start it and you talk about it, right? And
Mhm.
like my Patreon is not huge, and I've actually paused it for the Kickstarter right now. So if you click on my stuff, you can see my Patreon, but you can't. Well, actually, in a few days it'll be back open.
Mhm.
Um, I I have different tiers of support, right? Like there's a $2 baseline, and that's basically like, I like what you're doing. I want to support you. Here's a attaboy.
Here's a tip. Yeah.
Here's a tip, basically. And I was going to make it $1, but by the time Patreon takes everything out, it's like Patreon tells you not to charge $1 because by the time they're done with you, you're seeing a dime. So it's $2.
That's good. That's the way Amazon direct publishing is, and I've published a couple
Mm,
books, and then and stuff like that. They tell you like, because I'd rather just give away my stuff for free, and they're like, no, 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 we got to make
mhm.
some money off of this, so they charge. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
they charge.
they
So
give you recommendations, and I
mhm.
mean, full disclosure, I would love to have this be a sustainable career, you know.
Mhm.
So Patreon helps with that. I justify to myself, at least, my page, so people want to support you too. I got advice from some like bigger YouTubers. It was like, when do I start doing Patreon? Like, what's your, like, yesterday, right? The sooner you open it, the faster it's growing. There's no reason to wait. Nobody cares that your patron community is only a dozen people instead of 100 people. That actually means you have the bandwidth to deal with those 12 people. It feels like a community.
Yeah.
I think it's good as you're on the escalator trying to grow your whatever creative endeavor you're doing. Um, bigger is better, yada yada yada. But you know, there's a lot of benefits to being small. Like you can have personal connections with
Yeah,
12
you can
people much
pivot
easier
too.
than 1200. And you can,
Yeah.
yeah, and you can try different things. So I put stuff on my Patreon that can help people as well. So I don't make videos for the Patreon.
Oh, okay.
I'll do early access when I'm on top of my game, right? When I have stuff in the pipeline, patrons
Mhm.
see it first. But I was doing an adventure or a table. I'm a big tables guy. I was doing like DM tools. So if you're on the $5 tier or the
Yes.
$10 tier, you get a little PDF or something.
Oh, okay. So you'll make like when we talk about tables, just for the audience's sake, we're
Mm,
talking about, okay, like where's this adventure going to take place? Roll a D, roll a percentile roll. Okay.
yes.
So roll two
Yes.
D10. So like on a 99, where this takes place in a haunted house. On an 87, it takes place in a graveyard. I'm using Halloween examples because it's
Mm-hmm.
all around me.
It's spooky season.
Yeah, yeah, spooky season on 66, it takes place at a seance,
Mm-hmm.
so you invent those I love writing those tables, so like that's
Mm-hmm.
great. I could do that.
I love
That's
making
cool.
them and I love having them at the table because that,
Yeah.
like, now this is a little more advanced, but once you're like settled in and comfortable running D&D, I like letting the dice dictate some of the elements on my side of the thing, right? The dice are telling the player success, failure, right?
Yes.
To a large
Yes.
degree. But I like random encounters. Random encounters, this is a little more D&D inside baseball, but random encounters are controversial, I think, because a lot of random encounters are boring and have nothing to do with anything. So
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my I built a campaign around them essentially. And then that's a lot of what, like, I have stuff on DM's Guild. A lot of that stuff ended up, versions of it are on my Patreon. I like random encounters where you meet someone on the road, they have stuff to sell, we negotiate. You can't afford all of their stuff, but if you go do this for them, then they can do it. And all of a sudden now I'm running this adventure instead of this adventure. And I'm delighted and surprised. And the world that I've like carefully crafted is alive and doing things.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm experiencing it as a game as much as
It's
the
like
players are,
when
even
you're
more so sometimes.
Yeah, you're trying to find Carla the traitor in Fallout 4, and she's not at this settlement because that's where you saw her the first time. But now she's at this settlement because
Mm-hmm.
she's a traitor and she's moving around. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. It's like, but wait a minute, you had a mini nuke the last time and now you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I need, capital. So like you end up selling your armor to get the mini nuke. Yeah,
And it
it's
makes the
it's
world feel more alive. Things are happening whether you're interacting with it or not.
it
It's not
gives
just like on pause until you interact with the game.
and the kids love to buy stuff. They love going
Mm,
shopping. That's one of the
mm,
things they love. And I think other
mm,
players do too. That
mm,
aspect of like, I can improve my character, not just through experience and leveling up, but actually by getting better
mm,
equipment. And then the GP means something because
mm.
if you're well, I'm a generous DM and you just give them like, armor, or you just give them gold pieces and you give them too much, it breaks the system. So like
Yeah.
there's nothing is of any value if you have too much money, right?
And that happens so fast
Mm-hmm.
because you're like, I'll give you 10 gold to go, clear out those goblins. And then
Mm-hmm.
like 3 weeks later, it's like, well, I have 3,000 gold and nothing to spend it on. So like that gold doesn't
Right,
mean anything to me anymore.
right, right.
Um,
And
yeah,
that's
the
when you introduce the gray ooze or the rust monster that just like
mhm,
eats all their gold. So
mhm.
yeah, or the wonderful like NPC that joins the party and then turns out to be a pickpocket and leaves in the night with
Every time.
everything
It's a
they
and it's
own.
a were
Yeah.
rat, and don't get bit. Um,
Yeah. Those are good. Yeah, especially around the holidays. Around there's
yeah.
a I don't know if you do Adventure League. So I DM for Adventure League,
Mm,
and there are certain rewards for the DMs if you put in so many hours of service. And they give out like a little PDF about that, and they have these monsters for Liar's Night, which is basically it's the Halloween holiday of Dungeons and Dragons, I guess,
mhm,
Liar's Night. So people dress up like other people and
mm,
cause illusions to look like other people. And there's they what I there's this really neat. I'll do a whole video about it, but there's this whole. It's really neat. Somebody really sat here and thought about this. Like they thought, okay, what about trick or treat? They're like, well, people put little sacks of like candy on their belts with the intention that little kids are going to try to pickpocket them, and
mm, mm.
and that's expected, and it's cute and it's cool and like that kind of thing. And so
I
it's
like that.
like rogue training, like
Yeah, I've mined Adventures League adventures for ideas and adventures whole cloth. I've never actually participated in actual play in not actual play, organized play. So yeah, maybe I'll come hang out one day.
yeah, please. We do it every other Thursday, and it's a lot of fun. So I'll give you the information about that. But yeah, I think I'm doing back to YouTube.
Mm,
I think I'm doing YouTube all wrong because I do my YouTube channel is kind of a blog. It's kind of
mm,
like whatever I'm up to. So like,
mhm, mhm,
I passed 1,000 subscribers. If I may be honest, it was a Candy Crush video. that
mm,
was I was playing Candy Crush and put my levels on there, and I was doing that because my niece was playing, and we were comparing them and that sort of thing. And then I guess one challenge was really hard, and people were trying to figure it out, so they started watching this one video, and it blew up.
mm.
And so that's where I got past 1,000. But that's not where I make my money. Nobody watches those videos anymore because
Mhm.
they're either past that level or they've changed the level or whatever. But like, so you on my channel, you might watch a video about Star Wars. I might give my review of Ahsoka. You might have my friend and I just read a book and we'll talk about George Orwell,
Mm.
or you might find me like in the park feeding squirrels. So like I know I'm doing it wrong, but I need to like I have several different channels. So like I have the
Right.
channel that's the catch-all channel.
Mm.
And then I have all these other specialized channels. And if any of those take off, then I'll be doing YouTube right.
Mm.
Which is like pick a topic, make a channel, right?
It's
Which
also
is
what
what
are you
I've been
what are you
told.
doing it for? What do you like? What's your reason behind it? Right? Like there's a rubric. Like success on YouTube is like very numbers driven, but like
Yeah.
if you're in it for the money, buckle up because it's going to be a long ride.
Right. Exactly.
If you're in it
It's
to make cool videos and just like express yourself, then like who cares? Do your thing. You don't need to
that's
worry about titles and thumbnails and niching down and all that stuff. That's like,
that's pretty much what I'm doing, I guess. It's
yeah.
I would come from a writing background, so it's more about me getting ideas out there and talking about
Mm,
creative ideas and just
mm.
putting them out there. Because do you know how long it takes to write a book?
Yeah, I've attempted to several times. Well, you can do it in a month. I don't know if you know about National Novel Writing Month that's coming up.
No, no, but that would be a heck of a challenge. I know
It is.
Stephen Crane wrote The Red Badge of Courage apparently in 10 days, but short book and
Yeah, it's like Kerouac style, like on the road in like whatever 4 days. But
you
I think
could
he had some help.
you could do it. I mean, I wrote the rough draft of mine in 9 days, but it was
Well,
just the
that's the idea.
scenes, right?
So National
Then
Novel
you have
Writing
to put
Month
it all
is
together, right?
exactly. It's
Yeah.
50,000 words in 30 days so that you can turn off the inner critic, right? It's just get it out, get a crappy first draft down.
But that's what I tell people. Okay. So when we talk about creativity and positivity, what I tell people all the time is that, don't. So there's the inner critic, there's the outer critic. So being a writer, you have to criticize your language, other people's language, ideas. You do that. It's just critical thinking, right? But you don't have to be mean about it. But what happens is, like, for so many years, I graduated with my degree in writing, and I'm looking at the bestsellers, in the airport or on the bookshelf, and I'm going like, I can write better than that. That's terrible. That's junk. Blah 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 blah. I'm comparing, right? But the point is, they did it, right? They did it. So like Stephen King sits down, whether you like him or not, and he just types, and he does it, right? So
And
at some level, like, you can't compare yourself to them because they've done it. So just do it. And that's the big thing with writers. There was a writer who's now since passed away, but he had great advice. He said, write your story before it's too late.
Yeah, I mean, that's true for everything, right? Yeah.
YouTube gives me that platform. So like, I can just sit down and turn on my camera and just say, today I was talking to a friend about positivity, and he had this to say about it. And we were talking about the ancient Greeks, and then they just blah, 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 blah. And if anybody wants to watch it, great. If they don't, that's fine too. I got it out of my head,
Right. Because maybe you're like, who's this for? Right. The answer can be you. 100%. It can be, you can write a novel for commercial consumption, right? And you have different concerns than like writing a journal, essentially, right? And I think if you're going to write or produce YouTube videos or whatever it is, if you're going to produce something for outward, done is better than perfect. You can't make your conceptual thing, you can't make it better. You have to have it in front of you first, and then you get to improve it. And so many people are out there, because if you want to write, you've read 1,000 good books first, and now you're comparing somebody else's middle to your beginning.
That's right.
And you're like, I can do better than that. And then write for an hour, and you're like, well, this is actually worse. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you didn't put in your 1,000 hours, and you didn't make
10,000.
10,000 hours.
Remember
and
that
you got to
book?
make this better. Oh, sure.
I was like learning how to shoot pool when that book came out, and it was like 10,000 hours. I'm like, oh my God, forget that,
Yeah,
but
that's why I stopped playing poker.
But while we were, that's good. That's good. Dunning-Kruger will kill you at poker. So, it's, you'll lose a lot of money in the meantime.
That's what I was counting on most of the time.
Yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, well, you can exploit it from other people being seduced by it. But yeah, it's that's what my one friend said. He was teaching me how to make bank shots. So we're making bank shots. I miss. I make one. I'm like, yay! Now teach me how to make one in the corner. He's like, no. I'm like, why? He's like, do it again. And I missed. And he's like, okay, here's the point. Do it until you can't miss. He said, amateurs do something until they get it right. Professionals do it until they can't get it wrong. And there's a big difference between those two things, right?
God, yes.
But I know I like what you said about perfection, though, because I think that's an assassin. That takes creative ideas, and just like, you're not good enough. You're never going to be good enough. You're never going to write like Hemingway. You're never going to write like Fitzgerald. It's of course not, because you're not them. You're going to write like you're going to write like Ryan Doyle, damn it. And that's the way it's going to be, I just broke my rule and I swore. But like, it's, for emphasis.
Oh, it's open season now.
Yeah, now you can say anything. But
Yeah, in the
So
D&D
how'd you
world, you
get
have
over
the
that? How'd you get over that with YouTube? That's what I want to say. Like what pushed you over the precipice and you're like, I'm going to make my first video?
well, it's interesting. I learned that lesson the hard way through, decades of experimenting with writing and all sorts of things, career choices and relationship choices. Like, I have a perfectionist streak in me, and I used to think that meant perfectionism was when you work on a thing and never finish it because it's got to be perfect. And that's maybe a variety of it, but that's not the kind I had. I had perfectionism. It's got to be perfect or I'm not going to do it. So like the first time I do it, I'm not good enough. So it's not going to be perfect. So I'm not going to try. So
Gotcha.
I learned that about myself. I did the reps to like get better at that. And then part of doing the YouTube was here's a like a lot of unknown unknowns. I didn't even know all the skill sets that come into it before I started. Here's something that's not in my wheelhouse. That's 100% like it does feel like you're putting yourself out there very hard, talking about a topic that I'm passionate about. I'm trying to help people, right? Which got me through the rocky stuff in the beginning. But I did it to subject myself to that, like to see, like that's why those first videos are up still, because they're not going to be perfect. Like the first, and I talk about that in the instructional D&D side of things too. Like the first time you do something is probably going to be among the worst times you do it. And that sounds terrible and scary and like a reason you shouldn't do it. But the flip side of that coin is that every time you do it, you're getting better. The next time will be better. The next time will be better. So if you want to get good, you got to be willing to be bad at it first. And
You
that's true for everything.
do you do your own video editing?
I do. This is a one-man operation. I would love to sub that out. I would love to sub out some other aspects of it too. But yeah, I write a script and then I record the video. I edit it. I build a thumbnail and a title and optimize and all that crap. It's a one-man band over here.
So
Yeah.
the same here. And so I think that's the other thing that I like to, I don't want to discourage anybody from trying this, but
Mhm.
if you're going to try YouTube, be aware that the benefit is that you're going to gain all these skills because
Oh,
you
it's
have
incredible.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like now I almost feel like I could walk into like a video production like office and be like,
Mhm.
look, I have some basics. Put me
Mhm.
where you need me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I think I'm employable. I'm not saying that like, I know Premiere Pro inside and out. I use third-party free stuff.
Da
You know
Vinci,
what I mean?
what do you use over there?
Well, so my wife did buy me a Mac, so now I can use
Uh,
iMovie, but I usually just use it on my phone. But like for this stuff, I'll use open oh, what's it called? It's an open source one called I can minimize the screen and find out. Hang on one sec. I don't even remember. Oh, I can't do it while I'm recording.
yeah, don't worry.
I'll tell you later.
I've
But
been
anyway, yeah.
using if we're talking like inside YouTube stuff,
Yeah.
DaVinci Resolve is an incredibly powerful editing software. It's up there
Mhm.
with the big boys, and the whole reason it's free is
Mhm.
because DaVinci, the company, wants to sell you, you know, 5 6 figure equipment to use with their software. So they give you the software for free. So
Oh,
if you're trying to get started, like it's a learning curve for sure, right? So like yeah,
okay.
maybe start with iMovie. You can edit on, you can do everything on your phone. Like you don't need sophisticated equipment.
No, I find iMovies much easier on the phone than it is on the
Yeah,
computer, to tell you the
and
truth.
if you are getting started, especially if you're trying to like monetize, you're trying to make a business out of this, keep your overhead to zero. You don't need to buy anything. If you have a phone, you can make YouTube videos. And then that's basically what I did. I have slowly let the business of the Verdigris Table pay for the lights and the mic and like
Yes.
improvements. And
Yes. Make that happen as a business expense.
yeah, if you're trying to do it that way, because if you're gonna sink 3 grand to do a thing and it still looks bad because you don't know, you can get a beautiful camera and you don't know how to use it.
That's right.
It's not gonna help you. So stick
That's
with the
right.
tools that you have.
That's right. If you're not a singer, the best microphone is just going to make you sound worse.
Exactly.
It's going to pick up
Exactly.
the defects. I think, um, yeah, keep going. I was going to say something I forgot.
No, go. Okay.
Oh, it was, DaVinci Resolve, and then we were talking about the equipment. Oh, yes. Well, here's the other benefit of being monetized, and this is just from like I do sometimes financial videos as well.
Mm.
So, but like once you're monetized, you have income. Now you can legitimately claim expenses against that income so that you're not taxed on it. So if you do buy buy a Blue Yeti for $100, then like you take that off of whatever money you made. And for a brief period of time, the IRS does allow you to take a loss. So if you have, say you have a regular job where you make a certain amount of income, your YouTube stuff, you can take a loss on that. You can even take it against the total income of your household because you're just a sole proprietor, right? You just lump it all in, and then you have an accountant do this, so it's done legally, of course. And then, or you can use software. I just let somebody else do it, and then you can say like, look, I have this great equipment that I would have bought anyway, but now it's a tax write-off, so like it works out pretty well.
That's a much better place to, if you're starting out watching this, that's a much better goal to have, especially if you're talking about making educational videos about a hobby that you really enjoy. All of a sudden, when you buy the thing you were going to buy anyway, now the Verdigris Table gets to buy, the Path, the new book, the shiny,
and they're like $50 each.
And they're not getting cheaper.
They're beautiful,
cheaper.
but they're expensive.
Yeah.
Great artwork and stuff. So we should tell everybody how we met. So we met at PGX, which was
a PGX
gaming expo.
So Pat was part of a panel. I talked to him and he gave me his card.
I gave him a business card.
It's too bright. There you go. I got Pat's card, which I was like, I like this guy. And you guys are doing a very interesting. We were talking about like YouTube and streaming D&D games and stuff, but like I was mostly fascinated by like you guys are talking about like doing adapting Shakespeare and like a very like literary. So I'm an English major, so that like really
awesome.
I have a piece of paper that says I am good at that stuff.
If you want to join us, we're going to do this again in November, starting in November. So I'm pretty sure we're going to do Shakespeare next, and I want to do Macbeth because it's just. Macbeth is D&D for crying out loud.
It's violent, baby.
It's gothic horror. There's political stuff. There's witchcraft. There's betrayal. There's overarching ambition. There's all kinds of stuff.
Hags to start it.
Exactly. We got the witchcraft right in there.
I need to practice. I'm a little rusty on my Shakespeare, but like, hell yeah.
Oh, well, we okay. So I don't see us. Occasionally, we may give lip service to some of the more highlighted one-liners, but I don't see us speaking in that.
You're not in a iambic pentameter, and
he thinks that the lady doth protest too much.
I'll drop a ye every once in a while. Will be good.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna do that, but that would be hard. But but we may get into some costumes and things like that. I think it could be fun. I think that could be a lot of fun, and plus another opportunity for an educational experience. So. Maybe kids that are like, oh, we got to read this in high school. Maybe they like watch the D&D one and go like, oh, well, guess this could be fun. Or they learn one or two aspects about one of the characters, and that causes them to want to read it. Because, Shakespeare is juicy, man. There's some good stuff.
You want to learn your big bad evil guy is boring? Like, go read Othello, right? Like,
yeah, man, Iago's the best.
Iago is one of the best characters of all time. You need
probably
some like
the
weird
best villain ever.
Yeah, that's incredible. And like, I don't know if he gets credit for being the first, but like a villain stealing the show, being like he's maybe the first three-dimensional character in literature, right? He's so intriguing.
Yeah. And he makes everybody else do all his dirty work.
Oh, and
he uses props. Right. So like he uses like the handkerchief, and just by placing a handkerchief in the wrong spot and drives Othello crazy. And it's just that kind of subtlety, that kind of that's like, that's the rogue, the bard, like the evil bard. There's
charisma class for sure.
Yes. Learn how to use your charisma stat, It's a lot
And
of
if
fun.
you have a table of players who are unfamiliar with anything really, but Shakespeare in this case, like steal it, run it. They'll think you're a
Yeah.
genius. You'll get credit for it.
Well, that's what. Well, that's why I argue it. We started with like the Wizard of Oz because I
Yeah.
figured pretty much everybody knows the Wizard of
Mm-hmm.
Oz. If you don't know the Wizard of Oz, you're 5 years old and you didn't go to Thanksgiving. I don't know, but like I mean, it was on. If you're not exposed to it, there's certain things that like even in our culture of streaming where everybody gets their own niche and they see things on their own time, there's
Mm-hmm.
still like certain classics that are
Mm-hmm.
just there. And so that's why I started with that. And plus that's a wonderful fantasy with some great characters that are fun to play. Like who
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't want to play the Scarecrow, like just fun stuff.
And especially as like introductory role play, but even like advanced role play, I guess, like having stepping into a character that is like known is way easier. It frees you up to you're making fewer decisions at the baseline. You know this character already. So it's like, what would this character be doing in this situation is way easier to answer because you have a lot more to draw from. And then things happen at the table and now you're not going to follow the plot of the movie perfectly. You're going to adapt and be the Scarecrow or the Tin Man or whatever, but you have much bigger baseline to start. Like I think a lot of people, probably in YouTube too, but in D&D, you're trying to reinvent the wheel. You're afraid of like borrowing tropes from other places. You want to be like incredibly original, and you can lose people very quickly that way. Like there's the common language of some cultural touchstone or just like cliches and tropes, like we can recognize them and then you put your spin on them, right? Like do it your way well, opposed to doing something completely different that no one has ever heard of. That might be a reason no one's done that yet.
Absolutely. And the other advantage to having the established character is that when you do break character, it's
Mm,
funny. So like,
mm,
but it's
mm,
not funny until you
mm.
know what the character is. So if
Yes,
you do
yes.
something, that's why when you tell a joke, you do it 3 times. You do once to like introduce it, 2 to
Mm,
establish it, and then
mm,
3 to break it, right? And
mm,
that's where the humor comes from. So
mm.
when the scarecrow does something unscarecrow like,
Yes.
then it's funny because we don't expect that, right?
Interesting. I haven't thought about that side of it, but yeah,
Because
absolutely. You
I'm
can go
going
against
after
expect
humor.
because there's expectations. Oh, I'm here
Yeah.
for it. I'm
Yeah,
here
because
for it.
I'm going after laughs. I want everybody to have a good time, and I want people watching it to have a good time.
Mm,
That's the point of this particular set of reenactments and
mm.
through D&D. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking D&D and I'm taking an established intellectual property and running it as if it were D&D.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
basically a one shot. That's basically what
It's awesome.
that idea was. So we did it with the
Mm-hmm.
Princess Bride. We did it
Mm-hmm.
with
Sorry to
yeah,
miss that one. I'm gonna
which
go
is
watch that because that's
which is another great one. Yeah.
my
Well,
favorite.
that we could do that again. We did it, but it's the players are getting warmed up. So we need some more players because there's a lot of characters in that. But
Mm.
what they did with it was amazing. I
I'll
thought.
tell you what, man. I mean, I'm happy. I would love to play in your game, but like, you need a guest star NPC or something to like roll in
Yeah.
for 5-10 minutes. Like, I love doing stuff like that too.
Yeah. To
Um,
surprise the heck out of the characters. Like not
because
unannounced would be funny.
and
Like,
if
okay,
you are
you come in at 12:15.
right,
Boom. And they're like, wait, somebody else is joining the group.
yeah, mystery guest, who's behind the curtain, right? Wizard of Oz style. But like,
Yeah.
even outside of like streaming and entertainment side of things, like if you're running a D&D game and you have that buddy who can't make it till game night starts at 6 and they're at work till 9:15 or whatever, like there are ways to incorporate more players. I've had a lot of guest star NPCs and like it hits much different because you can kind of collaborate. You're halfway on the dungeon master side, so you can kind of like you know
Yep.
set some plot points up for people and then
Yep.
run away into the wings and then see what happens a couple weeks later.
The other nice thing is that you talk about is recurring characters. You were talking about this in some of your Dragon of Icespire Peak videos, where you had a character that was an NPC, and then you like said, "Well, we'll just like set this up so that 4 episodes later, boom, they show up."
Mm-hmm.
And I had a student who was talking about this he drew his own dungeon map. They love drawing dungeon maps on graph paper. So, and he ran the dungeon. So as he was running the dungeon, he said there was a chest, and it had a gold coin, a dagger, and a spider. And I said, a spider. I said, well, what's the spider's name? And he was like, Jimmy. And I'm like, okay. So then Jimmy, the spider, started showing up at other places throughout the dungeon. So like that became a thing. And now I taught him over the summer. Now I'm teaching him in the fall again. Now Jimmy the spider has to be somewhere in his dungeon. And so, you know what I mean? So like, it's become like a favorite, you know?
Yeah.
And at one point, I guess in his boss battle, we walk into the room and there's a flame, there's a dragon, and there's fire, and there's lava, and there's a roasted upside down spider on the table.
Jimmy!
Yeah. And we're like, no, Jimmy, for Jimmy, you know, and it's this rallying cry. So like the kids really get into those little details, and I think adults do too, because our brains like to get back to that familiarity. We like that. That's reassuring. So when we see, we're introduced something. So when you're writing a story, don't forget, loop back to like, you know, familiar elements, because it really engages people, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and that's who is this for? Knowing your audience. There's a lot of writerly types get into dungeon mastering because it's a similar skill set. But there's a huge difference, and it's a trap that a lot of people fall into initially of, you're not writing a story to tell your players. You are creating a story together at the table. So someone's going to ask you a question. What's the spider's name? Something you've never thought of before. You're going to come up with it in the moment, and it's going to become pivotal, and to panic because that wasn't part of the plan. That like, it's not just yours. And like letting go of that control a little bit, and like sharing and communicating, like all these soft skills, if we're talking about like, you know, the educational value to adults too. I mean, it's not just 11-year-olds who could work on those skills.
That's exactly right. Let's let it go of control.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, and I tell that's the other thing. When somebody asks me, they're like, you're doing what? You're teaching D&D? What's D&D? And I'm like, oh, it's basically cooperative storytelling.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, we're making up a story at the table. And that's a great way to put it, because that way the onus is off of the DM. You don't have to control everything. And it's more fun for the DM.
That's the other thing. I talked to
I don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly. It should be a game. It feels like a game for you if you're doing it right too. And
it's exciting.
I've talked to a lot of like, because I get a lot of people who are like thinking about being a dungeon master, watching the videos, who like haven't taken that leap yet. And I made an early video that I think I'm going to make again now that I'm like, can make a cleaner version of it basically. But I got a comment very early on in my YouTube career, like in the first like month or two. Someone's like, I would love to do this, but I need to know perfectionism. I need to know that I would give my friends like this incredible experience before I could ever start to do that. And it's one, you don't have to put all of that pressure on yourself, right? If you're doing it, you know your audience. Every campaign that I've run has been very different, because I'm responding to what the people at the table are doing. And like night by night, this guy had a tough day at work and just wants to kill goblins and, you know, eat pretzels. Cool. Like, we can do that. So yeah, it's different. It's different every time. And it's not just one person's responsibility or power trip, you know.
That was the other thing about doing the Adventure League, is that I started to feel like it was becoming a task, because I thought, well, every time I run this, you know, I have to read all these new modules that I've never read before. I have to know this universe. So I'm doing like Curse of Strahd universe. I got to like know that. I got to know Barovia. If I'm doing Eberron, I got to know the steampunk universe. You can run the same module over and over and over again. You're gonna have different players. It's gonna be different.
It's the best. It's the best. I mean, it took me a while to repeat anything, but it was Lost Mine of Andal, where I started to like, and Dragon of Iceberg piece, actually. I started to like break up for parts and like reuse pieces. And then like, even especially if it's like your own thing, to run it again and see different people push different buttons, poke different things, kick over different rocks.
They
It's
found the
fascinating.
door. They found the secret door. Finally, somebody found the secret door. Yeah, right.
Exactly. And I mean, talk about reps, talk about like, going from, oh, it hit to like, oh, I can't miss. Like running a thing where you can't miss because I've run this 3 times now. Like
That's
I
right.
know this, I could draw this map without referencing anything. I know what's in every room. I don't have to read any descriptions. I've already made them up 4 times better than what the box text says.
Mhm.
That's peak performance. Now that clears you out to like do all the interesting like narrative stuff and actively listen and like figure out what the players want and like put it in front of them. That's when it gets real good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of rerunning content.
That's
Yeah.
another point that you brought up that I wanted to make was the box text. Some of these adventures, some of these modules that I read, again, being hypercritical from the writer's point of view, my
Mm,
fault, my flaw, but
mm,
like reading it and going like, I can do better than this.
mm,
That's kind of the point. That's
mm,
what those writers are doing is giving you a starting point.
mm.
And a lot of times they're purposely leaving it sparse so that you can, it's a skeleton and you put the flesh on it.
Yep.
You fill in the details so
Yep.
that it's not like, no, you must have your characters reach Icespire Peak by 12:15 when the eclipse happens. Otherwise,
Mhm.
which is perfectly fine too. But like, I mean, that was the Hobbit, right? They had to reach the door when the sun reached
The
a
moon
certain
door? No,
point or
the
something
moon's
like
on the
that.
map and like exactly. They had to be
Yeah,
there on the
moon
solstice or the
runes. Yeah, so they
mm-hmm.
could read it. Yeah, but like, yeah, that's that kind of inflexibility leads to trouble because now you're going to railroad. So
Yeah, that's a very
it's like, we got to
interesting.
get here now.
Exactly. I mean, that
So
can be good at times in a smaller scale or maybe a bigger scale. Like sometimes you need to create tension. I think a lot of the dungeon master's job, what we were talking about before about like recurring characters and like callbacks and that sort of, and the humor too, is like getting people engaged and getting people to care. And again, that's not 1,000% on the dungeon master, right? Like the player has to bring their buy-in to the table or else it's not working. But if your character has relationships with the people in this town, then they're more invested in saving the town from the dragon that's threatening it.
right,
Versus
that's
like
right.
I don't know these people. I know this one guy and he's terrible. So
Yeah.
like, why am I going to risk my life fighting this dragon right now for 20 gold? Like I got 1,000 gold. I don't know what to spend it on. Whereas like I gotta save Jimmy. Like
Yes, kids
motivation.
and animals.
Kids and animals. Yeah, yeah,
Kids and
yeah.
animals. Always don't forget to give them the kids and the animals.
And
Have the kid
a weird
run
little
up to
dude.
them after the first adventure and like hug them around the knees or something and be like, "Oh, it's so good to see you again.
I
I didn't
love
think you were
make him
gonna
feel
make
like a
it." Blah blah
hero.
blah.
Make him
Yeah,
feel like a
exactly.
hero.
Right. And then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, I don't want that town to burn."
Yeah. Yeah, we gotta rescue Jimmy. And they're gonna attach to the spider in the treasure chest, or they're gonna adopt a goblin, right? And like
Yeah. Or a
and you
Nothic.
oh
I had a
god,
group adopt a Nothic.
same. I was like, do you know what this thing? You don't know what this thing is. But it looks like I think it's because Mike Wazowski, I think is the it's like it's a cute
Yeah.
guy from Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc. Yeah.
But yeah, I've had parties
Yeah.
adopt the Nothic at the bottom
Yeah.
in Dressendar Manor.
It's cute. It reads my mind. It's like, uh, that's not what I would want in a pet, but
This is an this is
okay.
this is an evil wizard who drove themselves mad pursuing dark eldritch secrets. But okay, yeah, he's cute. Okay, cool, cool. He's eating a dead body right now. Come on, guys. I was looking
Oh,
forward to
yeah.
fighting you with this thing. Okay, I need to keep
Right.
him now.
Steps out of the dark. Oh, look how cute. They start petting it. All right. Well, we've gone over an hour, which is great because we didn't run out of things to talk about.
Oh, they
And
never will.
yeah. And so I think we should probably do this again sometime.
Heck yeah, I would love that. Yeah, for sure,
All
man.
right. All right, cool. Well, this has been Brian Doyle from the Verdigris Table and Pittsburgh Pat. So like, share, subscribe, and check out all of Brian's videos. He's got some amazing content out there, and he's direct and to the point, and he answers his community, which
Mm.
that's a big deal. I answer every comment that's not rude.
Mhm.
And some of those too
I answer some of
sometimes.
I'll answer the rude ones if it's approachable.
Yeah.
You can get into trouble talking to people on the internet. Like, I don't argue with people. It's like, I can see why you say that. This is what I was trying to say. And then I don't follow that rabbit hole far.
I usually say something like, could you be a little more specific about why, why you didn't like what I said? What was it that you were looking for? And then that can, and every once in a while, like every 10th one, I'll get informed about how to make the video better or how to make a new video. So I'll get an idea of something. And I think sometimes people are happy that you approach their concern, even if they proposed it in a somewhat emotional way. So.
And sometimes people need to be reminded on the internet that there's a human on the other side of the screen that you're talking to.
Yeah, you hurt our feelings sometimes.
Yeah, so I'm human. And
I was a bartender for 30 years, so it's
there you go.
I have a very thick skin.
Exactly. I'm a little bulletproof, but it does help to.
But I don't want to be abused either.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
But for you younger YouTubers out there, I don't recommend chasing it because it feels terrible. Yeah. I'd never seek it out. But if you put yourself out there, you may very well get some negative, like constructive criticism, yes, but also some just like negative feedback that has nothing to do with you. There's just people who spend all day yelling at people on the internet for no reason because they have their own problems going on. That helps you because our machines are built to, or there's no
they want comments. They can't tell if they're negative or positive comments.
It doesn't care. So like your haters
are actually helping you. Yeah.
And if you have a hater, then that's how you know, that's one like milestone. That's how you know you've made it.
That's a good point. I actually have a channel that's about Fallout New Vegas, and there was a video that just blew up, and it was just people making fun of, I don't know if they were making fun of me or they were making fun of the character. They were just repeating what the character said, like Doc Mitchell says at the beginning, and it was over and over and over. I got a ton of like watch time and subscribers from it. Almost was able to monetize that channel, but then it fell off. So I couldn't capitalize on it. But yeah, that's a really good point. And Q-tip is something I remember. Q-tip. Quit taking it personally, right?
Oh, it's not about you. It's not about
when somebody talks about things in a negative way, 99.9% of the time, you had nothing to do with it. They're in a bad mood. They didn't eat breakfast. Who knows? You know what I mean? So like, just, it's all cool, but all right. Well, good.
Yeah, awesome,
we ended on a positive thought, and all right, we'll stop the video now. Take care, everyone. How do I stop the video?